What is up, friends? It is what day is it? Oh my god, it's September 4th. Okay, so today is PTR 2.0 for Diablo 4. PTR 2.0 is massive, folks. There is a ton of changes coming to the game. We have an article from August 29th we're going to go through today and just look through all these changes. And then as of today, when we go live with the update, we will have 1 week to test all of these changes. So we'll be doing a lot of heavy PTR testing this week on the channel and posting things that we find interesting as well. As for now, let's kind of go through each section and look at what's coming out in the PTR. It's to be noted that everything in this PTR says you do not need the Vessel of Hatred expansion to enjoy them, but obviously there will be new content coming out with that expansion as far as levels and story and things like that. So without further ado, let's go into this update and look at what we're doing in the PTR. All right, this is the Blizzard article, PTR 2.0, what you need to know. So everything that we need to know is in here, supposedly, according to Blizzard. We've got a lot of things. So we got systematic level adjustments. We've got difficulty systems, paragons, item quality rework, new classes and new class skills and passives. Runewords. Did you hear me? Runewords. So when I read this at first, and I won't spoil it right now, I immediately went back to Diablo 2 and was thinking about the rune system and how we all farmed and farmed and farmed for all of the different runes that we were looking for to make that perfect weapon so we could scale ladders and things like that. This system is going to be a little bit different than that, so we'll go into it once we scroll down. So that got me super excited. The amount of new mechanics they're putting into the game, they're really tuning a lot. I think Blizzard is listening actively to the community and putting in changes that are making a quality of life changes, as well as getting to the fun faster. So let's look at some of those things. Why make systematic changes? Well, it's to keep the game current, right? The game just goes stale if you never change. So, of course, things need to be reworked. I mean, let's look at how Diablo 3 came out, and then until Reaper of Souls really dropped, there wasn't a lot of good core mechanic changes, and the game was starting to stall out. Blizzard is pretty good about seeing like ahead of that curve and making sure that they keep the player base in the game. So leveling adjustments, the way Paragon points functioned going forward is going to be a little bit different. So right now your character goes above 50 and then you start earning points towards the board and your level is capped out. The change now is going to be split out. So levels 1 through 60 are going to be character level. And so you're going to have 10 extra points to put into your character tree, which is going to be really cool. Points after that are going to go into, we're going to have 200 Paragon points that your character can be earned, and it'll be realm wide. So if you have other characters that you're going to do alts, you can apply those Paragon points to those characters. So similar to Diablo 3, when we were leveling and then alt leveling, you could take all the Paragon that you had. Now, the other thing is whenever you took a character out of season, all of the Paragon levels earned by the seasonal could transfer to the non-seasonal. I'm not sure if that applies. Honestly, not even sure if that matters. So we'll have to look into that as we go through here. So if your character is below level 50 right now, nothing changes. If you're above 50, if your character is at 100 right now, so the level cap right now is 100. If your character is 100 right now, you're going to be reduced down to 50. So our level cap is essentially going down to 50, and then you'll start earning Paragon points. Now, this is very similar to Diablo 3. So once you hit 70, you stopped being 70, and then you could go to Paragon 1 million if you wanted to. Okay, stat adjustments. So in addition to Paragon levels, we revisit stats like health, armor, and core stats. Developer's note on that, we've received player feedback stating that the numbers used to depict stats and damage have gotten out of control. We have adjusted stats in a way that makes the information more consumable. This change has no bearing on the strength of your character. So basically in the character, like when you look at your info, you have a lot of different things that can map into like armor and things that map into health and shared health and life over time and healing over time and things like that. And they do get very complex. Some people may like the complexity and say, hey, look, I really want to work on this stat. I want to make sure that it's broken out and I visibly see that. I don't know what these new stat adjustments are going to look like yet, but it is probably like a little consolidated view, and then there's a more split out view. So more to tell. Difficulty system. So right now we are on tier 1 through tier 4. Basically, you start in T1, and then if you want, you can start in T2. I've never really started in T1. I like T2 because it's never too hard for your opening character, and then you can just get to T3 and T4 a lot faster, which is getting towards end game things once you do your capstone dungeons. So world tiers have not gone away. So what I was just explaining is the world tier system. Well, we have difficulty levels. We have normal, hard, expert, and penitent. Purpose of standard difficulties is to temper your character while you strive to hit level 60, the new maximum. Normal is slower paced. Hard and expert offer increased challenge, obviously, and penitent is not for the fate of heart. Those looking to pave a path to the new torment difficulties will face off against heightened anger. Play at your own peril. Heightened danger, sorry. As you accelerate in difficulty, the amount of gold and experience you earn will rise too. Normal and hard are unlocked by default. Expert is unlocked after completing Diablo 4's prologue, and penitent is unlocked by reaching level 50. Now we have torment difficulty. So what they did in Diablo 3 was they had torment difficulties. So you could start with normal through hell, and then you could go to T1 through T6 and start raising your difficulty and increasing experience. And basically you're just capping difficulty on top of difficulty. It's similar to what we're doing here. So now you would start world tier 1 or world tier 2. And then when you did a capstone, you could go to 3. You do your next capstone, you can go to world tier 4. Now you have start normal or hard in world tier 1 or 2. And then you can go into higher difficulties, reaching penitent once you hit level 50. So you can't just max it to penitent when you start. But in Diablo 3, there was really not a limit to what you could do. You couldn't get into torment until you hit level 70. So we'll see what torment brings here. New torment difficulties, we have 1 through 4, and eventually we had 13 in Diablo, right? And then they upped it to 16. So they kept adding more torment levels. And once you scale and get the equipment, it doesn't matter because you'll beat the next torment levels and then you can beat them and then you get to max. It was just a little bit more of a grind, a little bit better gear that you could get. But you're basically just drip feeding a little bit more content by making things a little tougher. Here we go. So difficulty you have access to will also increase as you strive higher into pit tiers. So torment difficulties is directly linked to the pit activity, and the pit activity opens up at Nightmare Dungeon level 46. So once you can craft one of those bad boys and actually beat it, then you can move on and start doing some pit climbing. So reaching level 60 unlocks pit tiers 1 through 20. Beating pit 20 unlocks torment 1. Pit tier 35 unlocks T2, 50 unlocks T3, and pit 65 unlocks T4. And if that wasn't bad enough, T difficulties have a new hazard, curses. So while playing Torment difficulties, your armor and resistance are reduced. Minus 250 armor and 25 all resist for T1. T2 is 550, T3 750 and 75. And T4 is 1000 and 100% all resist. 1000 armor is a pretty big hit. 100% resist feels like hell difficulties in Diablo 2. The biggest challenge in Diablo 2 was always resistances once you got past a certain difficulty level, because the enemies were not that much tankier. However, they required you to match elements, and they resisted what you did as damage, and then all of a sudden you were super vulnerable, as they had multiple different types of damage that they would do to you, whether it be, you know, poison or oblivion damage or anything that they were doing. So by adding more difficulties, separating them out. So again, let's recap. We have you have normal through penitent. You can do normal and what was it, hard? Normal and hard to begin with. Then you can move to expert, and then you can move to penitent when you're level 50. That is like base game difficulties that you go through and you can change. Then you've also got world tiers should still be in there. So once you do capstones, so basically this is a way to try to help you get to your capstones maybe a little quicker by getting your levels done a little bit more, get some better gear early on. And kind of change the way that World Tier 1 and World Tier 2 are mixed up. So let's take World Tier 1, for example. If you ran that on hard, that might be like a light World Tier 2. World Tier 2 on normal. We're going to have to figure out the balance between World Tier 2 normal and World Tier 1 hard level. Like, are they close, or is there still a little gap? I would assume there's like a World Tier 1 normal, hard, World Tier 2 normal, hard, and then so on and so forth. So we'll see. And then Torment is just for pit. So that has nothing to do with whether you're on hard, penitent, whatever. So your highest max level would be World Tier 4, Torment 4, which means pit level 65, and penitent would be your base, your game level. Monster level. So monsters will no longer have their level displayed and will scale to the difficulty you're playing on. So we received feedback at launch about level scaling and feeling weak. By removing monster levels entirely and leaning into difficulty, you now have the freedom to more precisely choose your challenge level. And this is interesting because right now, as we go through, you know, either the pit or you're doing uber bosses, or if you're doing keys in certain levels, it will tell you, monster level 100. And there's certain things like if you're only at level 70 right now, you might be able to take on level 90. But things go from right at your level, 70 to 85, and then all of a sudden jump to 100 and then jump to 200. And people can overcome that. You play groups and you do other things, you can get carried and whatever. And that's fine. But this will actually produce a more kind of linear, I want to say linear curve, like a smaller rise in difficulty as you go through. So it should scale better. And I like this. Monster levels to me, it didn't really matter because once you passed, let's say you did a capstone, you had monsters, the first capstones at 50 and all of a sudden your monsters are at 55. If you're still at 40, the capstone wasn't really that hard. You could do it at 40, 41. Now your monster levels jump up to 55. And so again, it's open world becomes slightly more challenging. You'll start to get sacred gear after that. And then the sacred gear quickly helps you overcome that. And then the same thing at level 70 capstone, your ancestral gear would start helping you overcome the new monster level at 75 plus. Cool. So no more monster levels. Great. Paragon updates and glyphs. So there are a few issues with Paragon glyphs, the pit, nightmare dungeons. Received feedback. Pit rewards were feeling lackluster. Wanted to make action of upgrading glyphs more satisfying. I agree. Glyph system is good in the way that it applies things, but by the time I finish boards, it's like you're just throwing darts at paths. I really want those key nodes to be lit up, and the glyphs leveling feels, I don't know, it feels kind of slow. So, glyph upgrading system did not scale well and was needlessly grindy. I 100% agree. Like, even leveling up a glyph, almost, it's not like it's pointless. It does more. It expands the range at which you capture other points around it. But didn't really level up the glyph per se. It didn't make the glyph do anything more cool or anything like that. So, to achieve the goal, we moved Paragon glyphs upgrading out of Nightmare Dungeons and into the pit, and also redesigned the system to give more control over how quickly glyphs can be upgraded. I think that's good because pit is actually feels like a little bit quicker of an activity, and that would make sense if you're trying to upgrade something and get more grindy. You want to get through the grindy thing a little bit quicker. And so let's see what else this has for this. So glyphs have undergone metamorphosis, better meld with the other changes we've made. Upgrading a glyph is no longer driven by experience. Instead, you're given attempts to increase your glyph's rank by completing pit tiers. Okay, 3 attempts to upgrade your glyph's rank are rewarded for successfully completing the Artificer's Mastery, and a bonus attempt for not dying. Okay, each upgrade attempt can be used to increase any glyph that isn't already at max level. A chance to upgrade your glyph is based on the level of the glyph and the tier of the pit you complete. For example, completing a pit tier that is 10 higher than your glyph's rank guarantees an upgrade rank. So this was kind of like Rift Keys. Okay, so we're getting closer to like Rift Keys in Diablo 3, and that's fine. Completing a pit tier that is significantly higher than your glyph's tier's current rank grants bonus upgrade ranks per attempt pack. So every 20 level difference between the completed pit tier and glyph rank. Now, mind you, glyphs max at level 15 right now, so that seems like it's completely out the door. Every 20 level difference between a completed pit tier and glyph rank grants a bonus upgrade per attempt. Here's an example of the system. So 3 deathless pit tier 30 runs would take a glyph all the way up to rank 19, rapidly unlocking the additional radius size. Okay, so the radius size bonus is still going to be there. It is now at level 19. First attempt, we have a glyph rank increase from 1 to 3. Attempt 2, glyph rank increases 3 to 5. Attempt 3, glyph rank increases 5 to 7. Bonus attempt 4, glyph rank increases 7 to 9. Now what they're calling attempts is interesting. Second pit run gets from 9 all the way up to 14. And then the third pit run just telling you that 14 glyph rank increases from 14 to 14, radius size increases. That's interesting. Then we go 15 to 16, 16 to 17, and then 17 to 18. Okay. Maximum level of a glyph has been increased from, max was 21. Sorry, I said 15. Max level of a glyph has been increased from 21 to 100. See, I knew that these were going to go really far. Level 45, a rare glyph can be upgraded to a legendary using gem fragments with the following bonuses. Glyph's radius size is increased from 4 to 5. Glyph gains an additional affix. Oh, cool. So at 45, we can start making them, maybe we can break down glyphs. I would love to be able to break down glyphs, to be honest. Ones you're never going to use in your boards based on a build, be able to break them down and get these fragments that they're talking about, perhaps. Paragon boards. Each class received 1 new Paragon board. Paragon boards each come with a new legendary node as well. Additionally, only 5 Paragon boards can be equipped, including your starting board. Okay. With the introduction of so many new sources of power, namely legendary glyphs, I wanted to focus on which board and glyphs you want. By limiting the number of boards, we can inject more power into choices made into the system. I think this is fine, actually, because you could have, I think, up to 7 boards right now, and you might snake through and save some of the points that you have and go through. So here's kind of a just showing the Paragon boards. That's just showing it in the view there. So let me get back to full screen. Sorry. Did that open a whole new tab? It did. Okay. So here. All right, so we're down to 5 boards, and the number of Paragon points has increased from 200 to 300. So we're going to be able to put more nodes per board, which is kind of cool. Allows us to concentrate on the power of the boards and the glyphs themselves, puts more decision-making focus on boards and glyphs that fit your build. Item quality rework. So felt sacred and ancestral items lost their specialness and flair due to how common they become. I was running some content yesterday with somebody and threw away, not even broke them down because we were doing so many runs, just threw away like 50 to 60 legendary items, right? They're at a certain point, and they're all ancestral, right? Which just makes them all, unless they're 925, unless they start getting 1, 2, 3, 4 bonus affixes, right? Then they're not really worth keeping. If nothing drops with a star, I'm just leaving it. I'm not even, I mean, I should break it down, but it's just like, it's so time consuming to grab 500 things off the ground and go break them down to go do another run. I would like to see some of those things. Some of what we've seen or some activities now spawn a chest where you can store things, move them so you have room to get new things is pretty awesome. And I'd like to see more activities actually do that. I think that's a fantastic idea. Or increase the stash size of things left on the ground so you can pull those in, cull them. Loot filters, auto culling based on stats. Those are other things I would love to have worked in that we've seen in other games, but I digress. So a rework. Ancestral items start dropping in Torment 1. Ancestral items always drop at power 800, the highest possible power. That's interesting. So we're actually seeing a decrease in power of items. However, ancestral is going to drop at the highest power. Now that's an interesting way to word that. Ancestral items always drop at item power 800, the highest possible. So is that saying 800 is the highest possible these can drop, or is that saying the new level cap of weapons or gear is 800? Because right now it's currently set at 925. Greater affixes only appear on ancestral items. So sacreds, I don't think sacreds ever dropped on it anyways. And ancestral items always contain at least 1 GA, so 1 greater affix. And these are the stars that you see on an item. So cool. Sacred items no longer drop. That's interesting. Wow. Okay, so after you did your first, after you got into tier 3, after you did capstone 1, you would start getting sacred items. And this is now saying that legendary is going to be the only thing you get dropping until you get to ancestral, which is starts in Torment 1. And Torment 1 doesn't start until you get into a certain level of the pit. Wow. Okay, that's a lot of change going on. Sacred items no longer drop, though marked as legacy. They can continue to be used, but cannot be upgraded. Non-ancestral items are capped at power 750. Legendary items dropped when you're level 60 will always be item power 750. This is really big because even right now I am level 80 for the season. Not finished by any means, but some content will drop 925. It could be a world boss. It could be a leveling up chest for seasonal stuff. And then the rest of your stuff is dropping in the 800s, which is it just makes everything completely useless for a long time. And this will get you into less of that sort of power hunt. So item power 750 can now be masterworked up to 4 times. Masterworked up to 4 times. That's a big change. Because character levels are being readjusted in the realm-wide Paragon system, items with item power over 540 are being adjusted to 540. Affixes on these adjusted items will be re-rolled at the highest values in their respective ranges. Interesting. So character level readjustment is causing them to do item power level readjustment. Okay. Makes sense. All right. New class skills and passives. We have 1 new skill for each class. Well, that is interesting. I like that. So let's go through Barbarian. Barbarian has Mighty Throw. So it's a weapon mastery 12-second. Are these like ultimates? It's hard to tell. Hurl your weapon, dealing 60% weapon damage upon impact and sticking in the ground. While on the ground, your weapon pulses, doing 20%. You can see it in action down here. So it's going to pulse at other enemies. It has a 12-second cooldown. So CDR is going to be a big factor in the new ongoing 2.0 system. So we have Enhanced Mighty Throw. It's just going to do it at 25% attack speed. Swapping weapons near any of the thrown weapons creates an additional pulse. That's interesting. Swapping weapons near your pulse. I don't know how viable that's going to be. Anyways, Mighty Throw is going to be impact deals 200% increased damage and stuns. So Mighty Throw feels like the better thing for me. So Druid is going to get Stone Burst, Earth Core skill, 30 spirit cost. Don't see a cooldown. Gather stones beneath your enemies and detonate them for 80% weapon damage. Channeling deals 20% weapon damage and increases the size of the effective area. So cool. So you can do this skill and it's a channeling skill. I like it. Enhanced Stone Burst does 25% within the initial radius. Primal does while you're channeling and for 2 seconds after gain 30% attack speed. Very cool. I don't know how you're channeling and attacking at the same time, but cool. Raging Stone Burst. Stone Burst costs 66% more spirit and its final explosion deals 50% more damage. So more resource, more damage. Cool. Necromancer, Soul Rift. It's an ultimate skill, 50-second cooldown. Corrupt nearby enemies for 8 seconds, dealing 65% weapon damage. Every 0.25 seconds, rip out and absorb the soul of an enemy, generating 2 essence and granting a barrier for 2% of your maximum life for 5 seconds. So basically stand in this and corrupt enemies, doing damage, gaining life. That's pretty cool. I like that. Supreme Soul Rift. Every soul absorbed increases your damage up to 30%. Last 5 seconds outside of Soul Rift. And Primal Soul Rift. Enemies within the souls become ripped out for 2 seconds. Damaging enemies affected by Soul Rift has a 5% chance for their souls to be ripped out and absorbed. Nice. Rogue. Rogue is who I'm currently rocking for this season. Let's see what Rogue's got. Dance of Knives. As you can see below in the video, there's a lot of dancing of knives. So it's a cutthroat agility skill, 6 charges, 1 second charge cooldown while channeling. So it's a channeling skill. Nice. Gain 20% increased movement speed, 10% dodge, and launch knives at enemies. So this is kind of like your almost like a whirling blade type skill. You know, we've seen these before in the past. So enhanced Dance of Knives, moving 30 meters, grants 4 knife charges. Methodical, when you stop channeling, drop up to 12 stun grenades, dealing 20% weapon damage. The channel duration determines how many are dropped. Disciplined Dance of Knives. Dance of Knives slows enemies hit by 25% for 3 seconds. Each knife has 20% chance to pierce. Piercing is good. All right, Sorcerer. What does the Sorcerer get? Familiar. All right, Conjuration skill. And I was reading a little bit on this earlier. You get 3 charges, 12-second charge cooldown. So we summon a familiar, the element of your last skill casted, for 8 seconds. A familiar chases down and explodes, dealing 40% of its elemental damage in an area. You can have 6 familiars summoned at a time. So 3 charges, you can have up to 6, and they have so for 8 seconds. But there's a 12-second cooldown, so if you have some good CDR, you can get up to 6. There may be some other synergy skills that allow you to, summon 2 at the same time and things like that. So enhanced Familiar. Familiar passively applies an effect to nearby enemies based on their element. Fire Familiar applies 94% burning. Cold applies 15% chill. Lightning stuns enemies for 1 second. And I guess you cannot have a Poison Familiar. That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. Summon familiar. While you have 2 or more different element familiars, gain 3%. I guess I'm not considering those elements. Maybe like afflictions or something. Familiar element is no longer tied to your previous cast skill. Instead, the familiar element progresses in sequence. The sequence is fire to cold, cold to lightning, lightning to fire. That is cool. Invoked familiar. While a familiar is active, gain 10% increased damage to skills that deal its damage type. So if you have a familiar and it's fire, gain 10% fire damage, so on and so forth. All right. 5 new passives for each class. So refine your character. Ultimate Agent of Destruction with 5 new passives. We've also added additional connections for some passives in each class. Skill tree. So Barbarian gets Belligerence. Heavy Hitter, Warpath, Irrepressible, and Barbed Carapace. For the sake of reading, you can go through all of these and just know that we're getting 5 new passives, which is pretty cool. Some of these, with the 10 new skills that come out, this is going to be super helpful to have more passives that you can use, but generally you only have 1 passive active. So I don't see this helping a ton. It just gives you more diversity in your build and more things to try out. However, you're not going to be able to put more passives on your build. So this Runewords is the biggie. This is the one that I was super excited about. This one alluded back to Diablo 2, and one of my favorite ways to change was using Roderick Cube, going through and even in Diablo 3, using the Roderick Cube to make things was, fantastic. This is not going to be that system. So we have a new source of power. Outside of 2.0 PTR, Runewords are a feature that can only be accessed if you have the Vessel of Hatred expansion. So we're going to take our character to a new power level, and there's 2 types. We have ritual and invocation. So basically a ritual is going to tell you that you have to do something in order to evoke the invocation one. So they're 2 in 1. So one of them is going to be a trigger that you should do often. So travel 5 meters. If you're a rogue or somebody who's fast and travels all the time, that's great. You can trigger your invocation one, which is going to be the power that you get. So in this example, the back rune is travel 5 meters, and you invoke the jaw rune, which is replace your next evade with the sorcerer's teleport, blinking further and dealing damage and becoming unstoppable. That's pretty cool. So you don't use your evade, you actually get to teleport, you do damage, and you become unstoppable. That's kind of powerful. I kind of like that. They do have a resource system, so it's not unlimited, but the resource is called Offering, which is generated by runes of ritual upon meeting their listed condition. Runes of invocation consume this offering to activate their effects. So travel 5 meters, get an offering. Invocation consumes the offering. The more demanding of a requirement, the more offering the rune of ritual will generate. On the inverse, the offering requirement to activate scales with the strength of its effect. So you're going to generate more if it's a costlier rune, and you're also going to consume more, so it's going to balance out. Not a big deal. Totally makes sense. To make a rune word, you must socket a rune of ritual, and to make a rune word. Oh, interesting. So we still get to make rune words, which is fun. I like that. That was one of my favorite things. You must socket, and finding bonus and secret rune words was really cool too. You must socket a rune of ritual and rune of invocation into an item containing 2 sockets. So we have chest, leg, and 2-handed weapons. So not everything is going to get a rune. What I'm curious is, can I socket rune words in more than 1 item? Let's see. The helm slot has received an additional socket. So in Diablo 2, your helms, you actually had 3 socket. I think the crowns even had 4 sockets. You had 4 socket helms. I think great helms were 3. So you had 4 socket helms. A big change because we had Runewords to make. So the chest pieces had 6. So it looks like we're doing 2 sockets for now, and then the helm is going to have 2 sockets now instead of 1. So we will have Runewords in the helm. Any rune of ritual is compatible with any rune of invocation, so you can mix and match any way you want. There's no difference in that. And runes come in 3 rarities: magic, rare, and legendary. The higher a rune's rarity, the more potent its effect. Okay, it makes sense. Here's an example of how 2 runes formed into a rune word would function. Let's use the back rune of ritual. While equipped, every 5 meters your character moves will generate 50 offering. Got it. We'll pair it with the jaw rune of invocation, as has an effect. This is what we just talked about, right? Replaces your thing with sorcerer teleport. So having them both equipped to an item and creates back jaw. Come on, guys. When these 2 go together, they shouldn't just create the word back jaw. Like, they should create a cool word. That's what was fun in Diablo 2. Like, it had a great name. It didn't just have the runes squished together to make a word. Okay, so let's get back to it. It also means every time your character travels 5 meters, they'll generate 50 offering. Once they have generated at least 500 offering, the next evades. So it's not a 1-to-1, meaning every time you generate 50, you get to use it. So you generate 50 every time you travel 5. So for this, you would have to travel 50 meters, which will be 10 offerings to get the 500 you need. So 500 divided by 50, that gives you 10. You have to proc it 10 times before you can use it. They can give you access to skills from other classes. There's 17 runes of ritual and 28 runes of invocation. That's good because I feel like we would get tired of the ways of procking it, and you would want more of the invocation, which is the actual skill that you get. So let's look at ritual runes. These are the ones, these are how you proc. So like every time, like for example, you get 50 offering every time you cast a skill with a cooldown, so on and so forth. There's a lot of different ways to proc. Doing an ultimate, traveling 5 meters, your minion kills something or dies, so on and so forth. And then we have invocation. These are the fun ones, right? So we have lack, which evoke the barbarian's challenging shout, reduce your damage taken. Olm evokes the barbarian's war cry. Vex does. So these are a lot of words that we've seen before in Diablo 2, which is kind of cool. Lum, Zal, and we have a lot of new ones like Zek, Nair, Quacks. I'm gonna say Quacks. Your next non-basic skill casts and spends all your primary resource to deal up to 100% increased damage. There's some really powerful rune words in here, and these will greatly change the way that an item and potentially the way that your build could go. If you find that you're proccing these enough to you can consider it like build quality, then you can add that in. So they're tradable, the runes stack. They'll be stored in a new socketable inventory tab. Thank God they don't take up your normal inventory. That's perfect. Thank you so much. We learned that from our sigils. Thank you, Blizzard. Same rune can't be applied twice. A maximum of 2 rune words can be equipped. So only 2 pieces of gear can have rune words. Rune crafting. You can use 3 runes with the same name to craft a new rune. The rune created from crafting is guaranteed to be different than the ones used. 3 runes with the same name to craft a new one. So if you want to get a new rune, you need 3 of them in a stack. Okay. Non-legendary runes are used to craft. There is a chance to create a rune of the next highest rarity. Very cool. Runes can also be used to craft mythics at the jeweler. Each one requires 1 resplendent spark, 10 legendary runes of a specific name, 10 rare of a specific name, and 10 magic of a specific name. So you can craft mythics, which we just got mythics in the last update. So that's pretty cool. Runes during the PTR can be acquired throughout Sanctuary as a monster drop. For testing during PTR, 2 caches containing each rune can be acquired from the PTR boost. NPC located in Zarbin Zet through a dialogue option to give you enough time to experience everything the PTR has offer. Runes will not be available in the PTR until September 6th. So we have 2 days until we can get runes. Can't wait to see the formidable rune combinations you come up during the PTR. Yes. Wander boldly with a party finder. Party finder is here to help you locate the right allies. Okay, so if you are looking at doing an activity, party finder gives you a list, party type, set the game type you'd like to run, what you want to play, add preferences, both casual and completionist alike. So if you're doing pit runs, if you're doing torments, if you're doing whatever, you can label that now and make it specific based on the things that you want to do. Interesting. Slaying through Nightmare Dungeons, selecting wings to complete in the Dark Citadel, and finding other players to share materials to summon in-game bosses. That'll be good. I don't know how much I'll use that, but that'll be good. Features offered for testing. Let's see. Campaign completion, mounts and skill points, Fog of War, Altar of Lilith stat bonuses. Very cool. Servers for PTR in our largest regions. Characters on your account have been copied ahead of time to prepare, although some of their items may be out of date compared to how they actually currently set up. Once you log in through Battle.net, your account will carry over all the account progress that you have done, same as normal. As many of the changes in the PTR are systematic, the following features will be offered to aid players in testing. At the Boost NPC in Kyovashad, you can level to max, complete the map, complete your class mechanic, unlock all torment tiers, fully upgrade your potion, all aspects, all uniques, all runes, all temper manuals, all materials and gold and ovals, upgraded potions, fully unlocked Paragon glyphs. These commands can be ran all at once or individually. The Boost NPC will be available at September 6th. So for the first bit of 2.0, we want to be able to collect information and feedback on a player's natural experience without modifiers. I don't really like using modifiers in a PTR anyways. I like to just kind of go through, but sometimes you need to go through and test some of the higher tiers and things. This one has a lot of difficulty scaling and things like that. We'll need to probably do the boosting and stuff. So feedback. New feedback through the forums. Install the PTR. You go to your client, flip the switch on the client. There's a drop down and pick PTR and then install. And then we got 2.0 PTR patch notes. So these came out as of this morning. So gem changes. The drop quantity of gem fragments now increases as you ascend difficulties. New gem tier, we have Grand, requires 100,000 gem fragments. Grand provides a 50% increase in power from the previous tier, Royal. All right, so we go, like we had Imperials and we had like 9 tiers of gems in Diablo 3. So adding a new gem tier, that's kind of cool. Gem stat bonuses have been adjusted to better reflect patch 2.0 numbers and gem stat updates. So Ruby, Emerald, Topaz, all of those are going 25, 50, 75, 100, 150. Amethyst, percent barriers, 2, 4, 6, 8, 12. Diamond, all stats, 8, 16, 24, 32, 50. And Skull is 4, 6, 8, 10, 15 on percent healing received. Additions, all classes, mythic, unique items, Air of Perdition, Shroud of False Death. So these are new items for these changes. Shattered Vow and False Death. So temporary, new recipe, Sharpened Finesse. Percent basic skill damage, core damage, and ultimate skill damage. Moved from Worldly Finesse. And an Elemental Surge tempering recipe has been split into 2 recipes. We have Elemental Surge Night and Elemental Surge Day, and they each do different things depending on which surge. And then skill trees have been upgraded or updated. Legendary aspects have been changed a little bit, and then some of our tempering recipes, we have a bunch of new recipes and 1 new barbarian recipe. Some changes to legendary nodes. A lot of changes you can go through here on the site. I'll link the site as we go through. And then there were some balance updates as we go through. So there you go. Not going to go through all of those. This was mainly just for the PTR 2.0, but as you can see, they went through and updated a ton for this. So that's it for now. That is 2.0. That is what you need to know. That was the article from Blizzard. Kind of went through and described what's changing, what I'm excited about. And then, like I said, we'll be posting more things on the channel, some videos showing what's different, what do we like, what's working in the PTR. So look for more of that on the channel. And that's it. We'll see you next time. Peace.